Hey there, folks, and welcome to this video about web development. We're going to discuss a lot about web development and especially learning web development. This video is mainly aimed towards people who want to transition into software development from another career and students who are studying like technology, computer science, or even another major and want to improve themselves. So in this video, I'm going to discuss about the roadmaps I would suggest in this year about web development, and I'm going to go over some aspects of web development. Okay, so without talking much, let's begin. I can talk a lot, so I want to keep this video short. To begin with, let's discuss what is actual web development. So many students, including me, had a myth about web development. Like when I first started web development and when I first learned about web development, I thought it wasn't really anything special. Like I thought about web development as just developing static websites to clients, for example, to for example restaurants or startups. You just develop basic websites to them, and I thought, why would you do that? Like there are already websites like Wix and Squarespace that lets you develop these websites for free, not free, sorry. They make you pay, but without any coding knowledge. So you can just develop a website without using code. And I thought web development was going to die in the future. But I was wrong. I was heavily wrong because that's not web development is all about. Like there is an aspect to it, like developing static websites counts as web development, but web development is so much more than just developing static websites. For example, almost all the applications in the world use web development in a sense. They might not use development in like front end applications like the parts you see, but to communicate with the server, communicate with another service, they use backend services. And developing backend services counts as web development because web development is an area mainly about front end development, the developing the part where users see, and backend development, where you develop actually the services, the communication between the services, as a sense. And many desktop applications are actually web applications in disguise. I don't want to go too much technical because I suppose most of you people watching are interested in becoming web developers, but do not have that much knowledge about web development. So I don't want to bore you with technical stuff. But it's true. Most of the desktop applications are web applications in disguise, and many software as a service platforms use web applications, websites, and these applications, for example, using an online video editor or Figma, for example, if you know, like with Figma, you can create designs. These web applications need to be high performance, and you cannot just do them with static websites. These needs to be web applications. So developing web applications is much more complex than developing just static landing pages. Okay, so we learned about web development. Now let's make the data talk about web development. As you can see, we have a graph and some data. Data on the left is from LinkedIn. I just searched available jobs worldwide. I mainly search for front-end developers, back-end developers, and general like web developers. And as you can see, there are a ton of jobs available for web development. Some of these results may not be accurate in LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I think, needs to improve its search engine, but there are tons of jobs in the web development industry. And as you can see in the graph, it's from a survey from Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow does yearly surveys for developers, and it's one of the greatest ways to acquire data about the field. And as you can see, this data is about developers and their career choices. Uh, Top three career choices of developers are in web development, as you can see. Developer full stack, developer backend, and developer frontend. These are all web development. So web development is most popular area in software development. It's a great area to get into, and it pays really well. Okay, so that's all nice, you might say, but you might have a concern, especially if you are not from like a computer science or IT background. You might think, can I become a developer? Can I become a software engineer without a computer science degree? Or maybe an IT degree? Will I be looked down upon? And the answer is yes, you can become one. And but you might need to study a bit more. You might need to work harder than other people. But I've seen a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, and a lot of people in the communities I've been a member of. They have all been software developers without a degree, and it's possible. It's just a little harder because you need to put in extra work. But you can definitely become one. There are a ton of free resources you can access in the webs. I I tried to say web app. In like Google, you can search for how to become a web developer. You can search free code camp. There are like awesome courses. I can actually make a video about that if you want to. Be sure to mention in the comments about resources on how to become a software developer, self-taught. And yeah, yes, you can become one. Before I go in the roadmap, go talk about the roadmap, I want to talk about there is not only one roadmap in this web development industry. The roadmap I show you is the roadmap I followed, and I think it's a great roadmap for beginners. And I think like it's a great roadmap, but there are definitely more than 10, 20 roadmaps in web development, and there are many other technologies in this in this industry as well, like .NET, Go, PHP, Spring Framework. But we are mostly going to focus on JavaScript in this video because it's the most popular programming language, and it's, in my opinion, easy to just use only one language in both front end and back end if when you're learning web development. Okay, so let's see the roadmap, and this is the roadmap I made. My face cam might be blocking some stuff. I'll just move the face cam while we are traveling through the roadmap. I'll just if you want to take a screenshot, let me move my webcam. So if you want to take a screenshot, you can take one. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now let's traverse this roadmap. Okay, so I'll just use my camera as a traveling tool so we can both travel together. In this roadmap, we start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, as you can see. And the reason we are doing this is if you want to become a web developer, you basically need to learn these three almost always. JavaScript is, again, one of the most popular languages, and it's the language of the front-end web development. It's heavily used. And whatever language you are going to continue with, it's always great to learn the basics about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and understand actually how websites work. So this might take a while. This might take a couple of weeks. Learning HTML and CSS may take a couple of weeks. If you do not have any programming language knowledge, JavaScript might take a little longer, but don't be demotivated. It can take long. Everybody has their own learning phase, learning speed, so don't worry about that. And after you learned about the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I would just recommend you to build projects. As you can see in these arrows, whenever you complete something, just try to build a project, because building practical examples is one of the most important things in learning programming and software development. If you do not practice, you will forget. You will definitely forget. So, for example, when you learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, try to just build a basic portfolio website of yourself, just a basic static website, so you can do some practice. And after that, I would suggest you to just again understand how web works with by learning document object model of JavaScript, HTML DOM, and understand actually how like websites work. Okay, now at this time, when you're competent about building static web applications, I would suggest you to just dive a bit into backend development. And before we do, I would suggest you to learn how to use the terminal. Now, this might be scary to a lot of people because, ooh, terminal, it's the scary hacker thingy. And I was scared when I started to use terminal as well. But it got way easier. Like when I first started using the terminal, I thought, why would anyone use this? Like, I just want to use a graphical user interface. But after becoming one with the terminal, I almost do everything from the terminal because it's much faster. And many tools don't have graphical user interfaces. So it's best of you to just learn how to use the terminal. And after you just become competent with the terminal, like try to navigate through your computer with terminal, try to open files with terminal, try to create files with your terminal, just to practice. Again, practice is really important. And after that, I would recommend you to learn Git. Git is a version control system, version control software. By using Git, you can just save your progress, save your code, if I may say so. Git is heavily used. It's used almost in every organization I've seen. It's the most popular version control system, and every team uses it. So it's important to understand how to use Git, how to commit your code, how to save your code, and etc. I would also suggest you to not use Git's graphical user interface and use it from the terminal. That's why I put terminal behind Git. By doing that, you also practice using terminal, and you also learn about Git. So it's two birds with one stone. And after you become fairly competent with Git, I would suggest you to join GitHub. It's not like learning GitHub is not hard. It's a website, it's a web platform for you to host your Git repositories. So you can actually host your projects there, host what you built there, and it's a great platform. You can show people your code, you can show recruiters your project, and it's great for you to get hired. And you can also check out open source projects as well. Okay, so now we have some prerequisites for learning backend development, and we can actually learn a backend language. We can't use basic JavaScript in the backend because it's designed to be used on front-end applications, like it's designed to run on websites. But by using a tool called open source technology called Node.js, we can actually run JavaScript in the backend, in the servers. So at this point, I recommend you to learn about Node.js. So it's going to be much easier because you already know JavaScript. That's why I want to go with Node.js path, because one, you already know JavaScript. Two, it's one of the most popular. It's the most popular language in the world. So it has a lot of opportunities as well. And three, I think the learning experience is great with Node.js. So at this point, I will just recommend you to try to run some JavaScript code in your computer, and learn about npm, packages, because the next path, in the next path, we are going to use a npm package called Express.js. So Express.js allows us to build APIs, REST APIs. I don't want to go in too much technical detail, but basically it's the way computers can like the front-end application can communicate with the back-end application. It establishes communication, it can fetch data from database, and it's really important. It's one of the most important topics in back-end development. By using Express.js, it's a third-party tool, we can develop APIs, REST APIs easily. And talking about databases, the next step is actually learning about databases. So as you can see, there are two technologies, two databases here instead of one compared to other ones. That's because there's actually two types of databases, like relational databases and non-relational databases. Again, I'm not going to go too much into technical detail, but they are both important. I would just recommend you to learn both of them if you have time. PostgreSQL is a relational database, and it's one of the most popular relational databases out there. MongoDB is a non-relational database, and again, it's one of the most popular non-relational databases out there. If you have time, I would just recommend you to learn them. But if you do not have that much time, I would just recommend you to learn one of them. You can learn whatever you want. I would go with MongoDB if I had to choose one, but again, I would recommend you to learn both of them, both relational databases and non-relational databases. By then, I would just recommend you to build a project that can fetch data, show data from a database. That's going to be actually our first full stack application, like maybe an application that can fetch information from our database, fetch a photograph from our database, and etc. Try to build an application, basic application like that. And after that, we are actually going to go a bit more about backend services and databases and the security of them. So in this section, I would recommend you to learn how to handle authentication and authorization in backend services. And I would also suggest you to learn how to securely store data in databases. You shouldn't store, for example, you shouldn't store passwords in plain text. You should hash them. And I would recommend you to just learn how to do that and practice. Again, practice is really important. I'm saying it many times. It's really important for your learning. Just practice, practice, practice. Okay, and after that, we already have knowledge about both front-end application development and back-end application development, and I would say we are a semi-competent web developer at this point. Now, this step can take a little while because it's complex. In my opinion, it was really complex. I'm still learning it even after years. Now, React. React is in the front-end development world, and it's a framework. I think it was a framework. It was a library. I think, yeah, it was a library developed by Facebook, actually Meta now. So it actually allows you to build front-end web applications much easier. Not just front-end applications, like web applications much easier. You can build components, you can reuse these components, and again, it's the most popular front-end framework, and almost every application out there that has a front-end uses a JavaScript front-end framework. So not many applications in the industry use like just a static website. They use React or another JavaScript front-end framework to build one. So it's important to learn how to use a JavaScript front-end framework. Again, I'm going with React because it's the most dominant one out there by far. And yeah, this can take some time. But after you learn React, you're going to say, oh my god, I can do this. It's much easier, or etc. extra stuff like that. And now, after you become like some competent, you have some knowledge about React, you understand how React works, I would just suggest you to learn about TypeScript. Now, TypeScript, oh, I couldn't put myself. Okay, let me put myself here. So TypeScript is basically another language, I would say, but it's really similar to JavaScript. Like, it's JavaScript but better. JavaScript has problems. At this point, you might notice these problems because you have some experience. You have a lot of experience actually, if you have completed React as well, and you can see the problems with JavaScript. Now, TypeScript eliminates these problems and actually makes JavaScript usable in large scale applications. That's why many companies use TypeScript. Many companies try to migrate from JavaScript to TypeScript, and it's easier to learn TypeScript because it's just JavaScript but better. Like, it has the same syntax with some extra stuff. And after you learn TypeScript, you can basically, at this point, you can probably choose what you want to learn, but I would suggest you to learn Next.js. Uh, Next.js allows you to do server-side rendering with React, and it's a great tool, great application, and I would just recommend you to learn it. It's really similar to React, so it's just built on top of React, just kind of like TypeScript. So you can learn Next.js much easier if you have knowledge about React. Okay, now at this point, you can probably just become a web developer. You can start applying to jobs, you can start applying to junior web developers jobs, and etc. But to pass these interviews, sometimes some companies want you to solve complex algorithm problems and not just build an application. Like, the interview experience differs from company to company, but usually they might want you to build them like a demo website, demo web application, demo project, and most often than not, they might ask you data structures or an algorithm questions. So that's why I think it's important to practice them. It's important to practice data structures and algorithms. There are a lot of websites that help you train. For example, HackerRank, LeetCode, CodeWars. I can also make a video about that if you want. And your progress is going to be slow and painful. When I first started doing LeetCode, I couldn't even solve easy problems. They were so hard to me. But with practice, I was able to solve them. I'm still fairly okay. I wouldn't call myself good at data structures and algorithms. But it's important to practice. Like, you improve painfully slow in this area, but it's important for interviews. Another thing that's important for your interviews and for your code quality is actually learning how to write clean code and how to use software design patterns. Now, many companies might ask you these questions like, what software design pattern would you use in this situation, and etc. in the interviews. So it's important to learn how to use software design patterns, and software design patterns are like heavily object-oriented methods. So you can use TypeScript. That TypeScript is great for object-oriented programming, and it's just basically going to improve your code quality as well. Now, these last two were for you to help you pass your interview, prepare for your interview. And at this point, you are ready. You are a web developer. Congratulations. But the learning never stops. In web development industry, the learning never stops. There is always a new technology, and technology always improves. So you need to choose your own adventure. Now, continue on learning new technologies. But at this point, you can decide what you want to learn yourself because you have the knowledge required. If you, for example, you might say, I kind of want to switch into maybe like a DevOps thingy, maybe like backend. For example, let's take the first example. I want to learn more about DevOps, cloud, or etc. So you can just learn about Docker and Kubernetes if you want to. You can say, I like backend development much more. I want to improve myself on backend development. You can learn technologies like GraphQL that allows you to write different APIs. And maybe you can learn a different language, for example, Go, that is much faster than JavaScript, Node.js. in backend applications and is heavily used at the moment. If you say I want to improve myself on front-end development, you can learn syntactically awesome style sheets, Sass, to write better CSS. It's like a better CSS, kind of like what TypeScript is to JavaScript, Sass is to CSS. And if you might say, I'm okay at the moment, but I want to learn something more to improve myself, you can learn testing. You can learn how to test your code by, for example, learning tools like Jest and Cypress. So you can choose your own adventure. You can continue on your own adventure like this. Okay, so yeah, this was my video. This was the video, the complete web development roadmap. I hope it inspired you. I hope it helped you. Again, there are many other roadmaps. There is not a single roadmap in this industry, but this is the roadmap I would suggest if someone came to me and said, I want to become a web developer. So yeah, I created this video to help people. I hope it's useful, and I hope to see you in other videos as well. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.